One of the very popular techniques that I teach that I'm going to leave you with today is a way of remembering things that we read, see, or hear. So this is a strategy that I teach for helping us remember what we heard in conversation, what we read in today's paper, what we saw on TV. When we hear narratives, and how many of you are writers or editors in this room? Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. But when we hear a narrative, when we see a story, stories are hierarchical, right? In every story, there is a main point, something that is the most important, the essence of the story. And there are important details that give us kind of, if you will, I say to people, if the main point is the heart, then these important details are the backbone. And then there's other details that flesh out the story that are important to give us the full flavor of the story. But from a memory perspective, they're not as important, right? So we have a hierarchy. So the beautiful thing about remembering stories is we can use that hierarchy to our advantage to make stories more memorable. And here we have the sing strategy, to sing for your stories. The first thing you need to do is stop. One of the things that happens when we're grown-ups is that we don't reflect on what we're reading or hearing. So unlike a kid who might be studying for a test by reviewing the material, we don't do that. You know, if there are 5 to 8 stories that start on the front page of the Times and I read that front page, I'm not stopping each time and thinking, okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I go from thing to thing. So you need to stop, to give yourself pause. Then you need to identify the main point. So in the Titanic, for example, what's the main point of the story of the Titanic? It sank. If it didn't sink, would the story matter? No. Okay. Then we need to end. Never mind the details. You know, the fact that let's go by the movie because that's the one everyone remembers, that there was a love triangle and this whole kind of background story and some jewel was involved. Is that important to remembering the story itself? Not really. It's a nice detail, but we're trying to remember the story here. And then finally get the gist. Get that main point and some of the supporting details, right? So the boat sank. Why did it sink? It hit an iceberg. What was the consequence? Death, destruction, doom. But yeah, many lives were lost, right? So if I was telling someone from Mars who came here the story of the Titanic, I would say a boat sank, it hit an iceberg, many lives were lost, okay? The unsinkable Molly Brown would be a nice detail, but it's not essential. And I just sang that story. So in closing, do I still have a minute or two? I didn't get a yes or a no. I have, familiar? Which I purchased, by the way, at the grocery store yesterday. And I'm going to read you something from this. This is the latest issue, isn't it? Yes, of Women's Day. Okay. So I apologize to the men in the room. Weight gain tends to happen during perimenopause and menopause, but again, the change in hormones isn't the only cause. Even if you're eating and exercising exactly the same way at age 45 as you did at 35, you're still getting more calories than you need. That's because your metabolism slows 4 to 5% per decade, which may sound like a lot, but it really just means that you need about 100 fewer calories a day. Okay, I'm going to stop there. What's the main point? We're stopping, right? We're stopping. S. Okay, who can identify the main point? Okay, or we can gain weight during menopause, right? And we're never minding some of these details, right? The 4 to 5% per decade, that's really interesting, but what we really need to remember is that as we grow older, we can gain weight during menopause. And what's the gist? Eat less, right? Cut 100 calories a day and voila, you're not going to have the problem. So we just sang that paragraph.